Hello everybody, vanburman here, and welcome to another one of my podcasts. I believe this is the 8th in the series. Today I want to talk about mobile gaming in particular. Well, no, just mobile gaming. I want to talk about how, or at least my feelings towards how, it's no secret that a lot of game manufacturers have gone over to making games on to mobile platforms. And there's obviously many reasons for this. They're cheaper to create. They don't take as many man hours. They don't obviously have to be as scaled up as a proper full-blown A-rated title release would. And therefore, obviously, cheaper to make. The games do, of course, sell for less. But there's increasingly more and more people who are using mobile devices, such as tablets and their phones, of course. Now, I have a problem with quite a lot of games that come out on mobile devices. So I currently have an Android phone, and currently the top-selling game on there is Minecraft Pocket Edition. Okay, now that's one I've played it, and it does play quite well, and the graphics are fairly basic. Obviously, they're Minecraft graphics. There's not a huge amount of gameplay in there as such. The connectivity is not as good as it could be, but I believe that they've made some changes to it. It's not actually got it's only on version 0.7.2, so it's not even a full version at the minute, because obviously they're developing as it goes along. But that's the sort of game which I can understand being released. The only problem is, as it is I find with a lot of mobile game devices, is that it does absolutely drain your battery like nothing else. Even having it plugged in, which I know you shouldn't use your phone when it's plugged in, but even if you do, for some games the charger won't actually charge up your phone. You will just lose battery less slowly. So for those sort of games, it does quite annoy me, I'm not going to lie, that it does take up so much battery, that it uses so much of the resources. Because obviously the screen's on all the time, which is a problem with modern phones anyway, the battery life, because of the whole touchscreen type thing. But I personally don't think that many games really work. I started off with Minecraft, which I can sort of see working, but then you've got games like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, where you have to have a virtual gamepad. I think anything where you have to have a virtual gamepad is, quite frankly, a bit null and void. You have your fingers on the screen the whole time, you're having to move an analog stick around and press buttons, and they're not as responsive, and it's just not a great experience. For certain things it does work. For example, for Football Manager, that works as a handheld game, because obviously you're just clicking on menus, there's no sort of fast reactions that are needed to be done, such as in Vice City. Plants vs Zombies I actually haven't played, which is actually third on the list. I'm on the top paid list, by the way, at the minute. So that one, obviously, I'm not sure how it's done, but I can imagine it being able to be used in touch devices. I'm trying to think see if there's anything else on here. There's a Prince of Persia game. Like, why have they made a Prince of Persia game for the phone rather than a new one? Although it does look very basic in terms of graphics, I have to say. So maybe that's part of it. They can hopefully make more sales and then spend less time to make it, less resources, which is what Square Enix are doing now. They want to branch out into a lot more mobile devices, mobile gaming, and of course they have it on their games which they bring out are far more expensive than normal ones. For example, Vice City is $1.99, Plants vs Zombies 69p. I think, well, Football Manager is expensive, but of course the handheld game is on, or used to be on, PSP, so maybe that's a bit more understandable. But yeah, the game prices generally for mobile games are fairly good, I would say. Why you'd want to play most of these things on your phone, I don't really understand. I can maybe understand, Angry Birds, and Angry Birds makes sense to me. That is one that does make sense, and It's done really well because literally what you're doing, you're flicking your bird back and forth. You're flicking the bird back and it's flying forward. So, that does make sense. It's not like a ported console game, which really does annoy me. Or a game which looks like it should be made for the PlayStation 2 and then being brought out on a mobile device. That's what annoys me. And the problem is we're going to miss out on so many full-blown titles because of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I presume for every one console properly marketed title a company could make, they might be able to bring out 3 games on mobile devices. I don't know what the margins and costs are like between the two, but I'm sure there's a big difference. Obviously, seeing as if it goes out on PlayStation 3 or Xbox, then PlayStation or Xbox, I must say PlayStation 3 or Xbox, that's irrelevant. Then they actually would have to have a physical box, whereas for mobile devices it's just a download. And of course there's only really 2 systems. I know there's Windows Phone, but nowhere near as big as Android or iOS anyway. And yeah, that's where the problem lies for me in one respect. And another problem, which I know I said I would mainly talk about mobile gaming, I wanted to move on to free-to-play games. So if we have a look on the Android store, this is going to be an interesting one, and we look at the top grossing games, which is the games which have taken the most money. The most money. So first we have Candy Crush Saga, second we have The Simpsons Tapped Out, and third we have The Hobbit. Okay, now we have to get all the way down the list to number 9 before we actually get a game which is paid for, which is paid to buy, and that is Minecraft Pocket Edition, which is number 9, and then we do also have Football Manager, which is 21st. So these games are free, yet they're making the most money. Now why is that? Because you're allowed to download the game for free, but then if you want to be able to go up levels more easily and efficiently, you have to pay for it. Which, okay, is fair enough if you make the game for free. But why, when mobile games are sort of on the 69 pence to £2 mark, I know some of them are more expensive, but why should they be taking more money than the other games? It's not right. Obviously the pricing that way is wrong, because we're going to get more games like that for mobile devices that are going to be more pay for optional extras in the game. So the game might be free, but you're going to spend a lot more money on that than you would do if you bought a game for £2.99. If you bought Football Manager for £7, for example, then it's obvious that people, well, what it looks like, the trend looks like, you're going to be spending more money if you get a free game, because you're going to be convinced into spending money on that. And that's the problem with free-to-play games, not just on mobile devices, also on the PC as well. I've been playing Ghost Recon Online a fair bit, and also Warframe. So much of that is geared towards you having to spend real money in order to get different stuff. There is the good thing, or the one good thing about Ghost Recon, is that you can buy everything with points you earn in the game. You can't buy the special bundles and equipment caches. They do cost real money, or effectively real money. But the rest of it can be bought with points that you've earned through playing. Granted, it would take you a heck of a long time to play than it would do to just purchase it, but I'm okay with that to a certain extent. But the problem with Ghost Recon Online is the payment structure. For example, if I wanted to get the final, I was looking at the sniper rifles. So the one for level 30 would cost you $15 of real money to buy. So that's £10. That's one weapon for one class. That's the top weapon for one class. £10, you might say, well, okay, that's steep, and you have to be level 30 to buy it, obviously. But then what about if they charge £30 for the game? But would they get away with charging £30 for the game when it's just online? No, probably not. I wouldn't have thought so anyway. I know Call of Duty pretty much is just online, but that's by the by. So obviously you might think about it that way. Well, I might have spent £10 to buy that gun, but I might have paid £30, £20 for the game anyway, because it's so well made. But then you have other things like frag grenades, which deplete. You don't get a fixed amount of them every time you go in, and you're encouraged to buy them. You do start off with 15. I haven't used any of mine yet. I have been killed by plenty of them, but you're encouraged to buy them as well. And eventually it stacks up, if you were going to do it that way, that you would probably end up paying a heck of a lot more than you would do for just a game title. A heck of a lot more than you would do for a game title and a proper full-blown DLC. And we have a lot of gaming going that way, and I personally don't like it, and I don't think consumers should either. We should be back to the point where I buy a game, I play it, I don't have to pay to do certain stuff. I'm not limited. There's not been restrictions put in to limit me to then have to pay. And that's the problem, I feel. And it really has derived from DLC. I have a big problem with DLC, as you may know, may not know. Maybe I haven't voiced it that much on videos, but I definitely voice it under normal conversation. And the problem is that you're paying for something extra to the game when you've already bought the game. Don't get me wrong, in some cases it can be done really well. And Bethesda, not for everything, but for most of your DLC, I take my hat off. I'm not wearing a hat, but if I was, because they've done it the right way. I mean, for example, Oblivion, that came out, and it was several months after that came out that we had, for example, different player houses, horse armor. They're really interesting DLCs as well. Obviously stuff which or it seemed like anyway, stuff which they'd come up with after the game had come out. Oh, we can do this. I presume it might have been inspired from the modding community, which I know a lot of stuff that they have done that has come from that. So, there is that side to it where it makes sense. And then on the flip side, you've got Borderlands 2, where for one of the classes in the game, which looks the most fun, which was the Necromancer, so like a necromancer, but instead summoning mechanical beasts, mechanical friends, which was a day one DLC. And then if you bought the game separately and wanted to download Necromancer, it was something like $7.99, $6.99. So £7 on top of the $35 you might have spent already. Now I know it's a bit cheaper on PC, so £30. So $37, and then there was all this other stuff. And I was actually in game in my local town when Borderlands 2 was being sold. And for everyone, well, the day it came out, and everyone was coming in with their pre-orders. And when everyone was coming in to pay for the game and buy the game, they were all being asked if they wanted to buy a season pass on the DLC. And I was so surprised that roughly 50% of the people that I saw actually did buy the DLC. And it was just one of those things that was really alien to me to see. I mean, there would be no way that I would... I mean, if I was told that, I'd have to spend an extra £15 for DLC, all the DLC that's going to come out, I would think, well, surely I have to add that on to the base price of the game. So all of a sudden I've gone from having a £35 copy of Borderlands to having a £50 copy of Borderlands. And quite frankly, that's too much for a game. It really is. I mean, I can understand collector's edition being more expensive because sometimes they have extremely nice statues in, or stuff which will cost more. I mean, I'm gathering maybe it doesn't, because they can order it in bulk and use cheaper materials, but you at least get the feeling that that's what you're getting. And it was quite obvious from the start that Borderlands were going to do that. We're going to bring out day one DLC and say, this is for the people who have the season pass, these are for you who don't have the season pass. And quite frankly, it's a bit scandalous, I feel, for season passes to be around even. And, well, another example is obviously Square Enix with their costumes for 13.2 and 13.3. But don't get me into paying for costumes, because that is utterly pointless and should never ever be done. If you're going to put costumes in, fine, make them unlockable after you've completed the game. Simple as that. where is the good old days gone? Oh yeah, back in history. Of course, maybe this is just the way that gaming's going. Maybe this is why I'm a bit of a trilobite sitting in my chair, playing old school RPGs, hoping that I'm going to get, something equally amazing come out, which is, maybe I'm delusional on that one, maybe not, I don't know, we will see. But I honestly can foresee a collapse in this type of gaming. Eventually, I'm really, really hoping that eventually consumers will wake up and realise that this is not the way. This is not the way to go. You can't just abide by it. You do have to put your foot down. There's been a minor victory with the Xbox One, to some extent. They have written in the terms of agreement that it can be changed at any time. So after they've sold so many millions of units, who's to say that they're not going to bring in a system where all games are then registered to your console? And nothing stopping them from doing it. Granted, there might have been anything stopping PlayStation 4 from doing it, Sony from doing it, sorry. But, they've not gone in with that intention at hand and then had to change. But that's the next gen stuff, which obviously I don't have to worry about being a PC gamer. And the one shred of light which I can see at the minute is I have Rome 2 coming out shortly, and we have a lot of alternative games which I'm hoping will fill the gap, but I'm also hoping that we won't get I hope we get the right use of DLC. DLC is not a bad thing. It's not. It's a bad thing when it's used in the wrong way, and in the majority of cases it's used in the wrong way. And that's the problem. And when does that start coming into PC gaming? Well, it's already there in a sense. Sort of buying for optional extras and being able to advance in the game quicker. That is sort of like DLC, because you are paying for it. You're paying for that service or paying for that extra content, basically. It's not quite. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but it is very close on so many levels that it might as well be put in the same sort of category. So, if you manage to get this far, then you probably agree with me, or despise my words entirely. But this is where it needs to start. We need to not be going out and buying games which are going to be like that. Obviously I mentioned Rome 2, which has day one DLC, which I don't like. But then again, it is a pre-order incentive, and I have no problem with them having a pre-order incentive as such. It just depends on how much they're going to charge for the Greek state packs. I reckon it's going to be about $2.99. I'm hoping it's going to be about $2.99 or £2. Something small, something nominal, which obviously people who pre-order it will want those as soon as they get in the game. But generally DLC, day one DLC is extremely bad, and I do think it's bad, even in Rome 2. I think all the factions which have been developed to such a level where a player can play it should be made playable from the start without the need of the DLC. However, I don't know. If it came in later on when they had to actually, they'd finished the game, but then there was a lot of support for a certain nation, and then had to go away and develop it and create it and put it in the game, then that's fine as a DLC. It's fine if it's above and beyond what the game was meant to be, what the factions were meant to be. I mean, we've got a clear list of factions, or we were given a clear list of factions, then we were given the Greek state packs. I don't know, I think they were always planned to be made, so that's a little bit of a kick in the teeth in a sense. But I think I'm just too overwhelmed to be getting, another amazing strategy game that I don't really care that much. But it's gone into all areas of gaming, this paying for optional stuff. I personally don't like it, and it might be here to stay. But I'm hopefully hoping that we will have a shift in mentality with gamers, because of course it is the gamers which decide a company's future, which decide how the games go. It's up to game companies to come up with new ideas and new ways of implementing it, new ways of making more money, of course. But it's up to the players to say when enough is enough. And I believe that time's come. And I believe certain companies who are already feeling it, which I won't name the name of the company, but you know who they are, they're already being told that they're doing wrong, and they're losing money because of it. And the people who are buying the games are doing it with their feet. There's a certain game which is coming out shortly which will not sell anywhere near as well as any other game in that series. And quite frankly, if they haven't spotted it already, then it's not going to matter when that happens. But they're bound to lose a lot of money this year as well. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe they will come to some enlightenment. Maybe not. So anyway, enough about me being bitter over Square Enix. Oh. Well, I've given it away, but that's not the point. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. It's been, really long, I think. But, it's just one big topic I wanted to get off my chest, and it is something that does really annoy me, but it also influences me as well to do my reviews and do my games, because I like to highlight the way gaming should be developed properly, not played properly, because you can only really play it the way it's been developed. But there is also obviously the whole ethos side of the gaming community, and I think we need a bit more emphasis on that. That's the final thought I want to leave you with. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed, and please do keep your eyes and ears to the ground. Don't keep your eyes to the ground. Keep your ears to the ground and your eyes to the sky for my next podcast. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, listening even, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.